call the meeting. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 11:34. I'm Jeff Justison, the chair, and I think, Joy, do we typically start with roll call? Does that work for you?
Yes, that works.
So if you'd go ahead and go through, that'd be great.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I am Joy Snyder. I am the admin specialist with YDO. I'm just going to go through the list of our committee members. And if you're present, you can just signify by saying yes, or you can raise your hand. First on the list, we have Zan Odro. Next, we have Adam Hennin.
Yes.
Thank you. Kim Lay. Andy Leonard. Bobby Devine. Christina McMahon. Nate Latangio. Jeff Justison.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Andrew Copeland.
Hello, everyone. I am here.
Thank you. Daniela Avila. George Charles Koklax. And we also have some non-committee members. We have Caitlin Edgar.
Hello, present.
Thank you. Nella Hogberg.
Present.
Thank you. Next we have Annette Magicotomy. And we have Molly Rogers.
I'm here.
Thanks, Molly. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jeff Justison.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. For the start, I am going to pull up the agenda here. I need Bobby here with the tech for me because he's better at that than I am. So just today we're gonna we have quite a few things on the agenda. So the first thing is the Juvenile Justice Committee charter, and Anya, I'm just going to turn that over to you. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it today. And Anya, if and when we're ready to move through, if you move through different items on the agenda without turning it back to me, you will completely not offend me. So just move forward with things as you see fit.
Well, I would never try to offend you in any way, but I'm hoping that you will make some comments along the presentations. So, Joy, if you don't mind, well, sharing the committee charter on the screen so people can look at it.
Sure.
Melissa, I know you're on, so at some point, I hope you will help me explain the purpose of the charter and what is expected from all committees of the council. I see you nodding your head.
Sounds good. Thanks.
That's an agreement. Thank you. So, I think it was it a couple of years ago, Melissa?
Thanks, Anya. Melissa Gallardo, YDO staff.
I want to say it was after our strategic planning retreat, like two sessions ago. It was like 2021, I think, when we started this.
Right, thank you.
Hmm?
So we started it, but we have not completed it. So what we have shared with you, it's a draft, and I see it's still no, it's the newer draft than the one that I had. So awesome. Thank you, Joy, for sharing the most updated one. So the format is, I understand it's like a template, Melissa, for all other committees as well. So we just follow what has been provided to us. So it's basically for people to understand what the committee is about, what we do, what we're expected to do, what type of decisions we recommend to the council. So everybody is clear, or more or less clear, on what the expectations are and why we exist, what are the roles and responsibilities. So first, what you see is the membership. So we have council members who have been appointed by the governor, and also an ex officio member, Adam, who is replacing Sam Core. If you haven't met Adam, it's a thrill to have him. And as much as we will miss Sam, Adam is fantastic. So welcome, Adam. We also have community members, and I believe you all received a message from Melissa post the council meeting in June that the council voted on each one of yours membership to join the community as a community member. It was in our bylaws. We just formalized it recently. So the community members, you know who you are, and we so appreciate your support and the knowledge that you bring to this committee. We also have staff members. So Brian is obviously director. Melissa runs the show of the council. She is the council administrator. So nothing passes by without Melissa that's related to the council business. And therefore, for the committee, every one of the committees, including ours. And you have Lindsay Schoonover, and of course, Lindsay is our federal compliance monitor. We have me, who serves as your liaison here. We have Joy, who is the administrative support, and she is the key person to keep this committee going. And then we have Lawrence White, who is our racial and ethnic disparities coordinator. I also noticed that Abe Magana joined us today as well. He's always welcome to attend. Abe, shall we put you on the list? I guess we should. So for those of you who don't know what Abe does, Abe, do you want to say in a moment what you do? Because you just released an RFA, which I'm super impressed.
So yes, I manage our youth community investment grants primarily. Those are primarily what we would call prevention grants specifically. But today, we just launched a new RFA, Safe Communities for Youth grant. And I'll just talk a little bit about it, but it's really focused around community violence and looking at youth that are pretty much at imminent risk of violence occurring to them, and trying to provide comprehensive services to help those youth to kind of get out of those cycles of violence. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Thank
I'll
you.
drop a link here in a little bit also in the chat to
That'll be
RFA as
fantastic.
well.
So see, you belong here. So please join us anytime you can, and we will add you to the staff members for this committee as well. Then what's going after this is there's a link. Well, Joy, could we go back for a moment? I just want to, if that's okay with everybody, I just would like to go through the list of, everything that's on that document, so there are no surprises. So if you click on this YDC member support list, and I don't know, Joy, can we do it in real time?
Yeah, it's gonna take a second, but if you want to keep going, and then I'll open that up later.
Right. So I believe, and I will ask Melissa to help me out here. So these are the people listed here who you may want to contact if you have any need for communicating with the governor's office or other people who are connected to the work of the council. And I don't know who else is there. I can't remember without looking.
Anya, this is Melissa Gallardo with YDD. YDO, the YDC member support list is for admins to include people in the blind CC field of emails and meeting invitations. So it's like if you have an administrative support person that keeps your calendar, or so it's sort of the supplemental people who need to know who aren't on the committee or the council.
Thank you. So this is not for necessarily for the committee members to use, but this for our internal purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably make it clearer. And then the next one is we don't need clicking on it. The purpose statement. So this is something that we've put together just thinking through of what this committee responsibilities are. So if we missed something, this is one we would like for the committee to engage with and remind us if there is something that's missing here. And if it's hard to do in real time, you will always have an opportunity to review that draft later on and send your feedback to us. However, if something strikes you as missing or something strikes you as it shouldn't be here, now this would be a time to tell us. And Molly, if you don't mind, I'll call on you because you've been with this committee the longest and you've been instrumental to all the work that this committee has been doing over the years.
Well, so Molly Rogers, a community member. I really appreciated Abraham's comment about the community safety, because truly this committee has been the committee for the YDC to really talk about risk and needs for young people within our communities. And so as I look at the notes from the PowerPoint, I appreciate all of the kind of bullet action points, but there is kind of an overarching that we are kind of the YDC's subject matter experts on adolescent developmental approach as it lends itself to challenging behaviors. So I don't know where that goes in here, but if I were to kind of do an overarching theme and just my experience over the last several years, that's what I would say.
So I think that belongs in the purpose statement. Like
okay.
the main purpose statement is to provide. Would you mind repeating it? And Joy, I don't know, are you able to take notes or is it? Or we can do it like Molly. Sorry, go ahead again.
Yeah, no, I'm recording a piece of it, but I think we're the subject matter experts really on adolescent brain development and the intersection with high-risk behaviors is what I would say.
Does anybody have an objection to this?
Anya, this is it's Jeff Justison. I agree. I don't have an objection. I was just my comment was going to be that the purpose statement should start with a statement and then add in those bullet points, kind of more in narrative form. So, but I think that's a good start for Molly, or a statement with a sentence or two or three and then the bullet points. But that's a good start, and I'm glad you were taking notes because I wasn't. So I'll trust that you transcribed those pretty well.
Awesome, thank you. So, any addition to what Jeff and Molly just said. So this is what we're working on is the purpose statement that is to serve as subject matter experts on all the lists that Molly just provided. And of course, I did not catch everything, but we'll have a meeting recording, so we will get it all on. So Abe, see your contribution is obvious. It's right here. Now for the bullet points, so the one that seems to be missing, but it's in the goals and activities connected to strategic plan, is to develop the 3-year plan for Title II grant program. So it's not really missing as a bullet point. It's its own separate pretty much statement in the area of work that the committee does. The only thing I would add here, because it's connected to developing a 3-year plan and identify funding priorities, but there's also a role for the state advisory group to play in the distribution of the federal funding. So I would suggest that we add a bullet point of participate in the review and approval of applications for the federal funding. And we will have a conversation. Molly, go ahead.
No, I was gonna go ahead and finish your thought because I have another one to put there.
Okay, so and I will word it later, but the idea is that the state advisory group is expected to take an active part in review of the application and approval of them. And there will be actually a webinar done by Coalition for Juvenile Justice later this month. That explains the role of the state advisory group in the grant making process. And I will share that link to in the chart if you're interested in looking at it. What's your Abe? Sorry, Molly didn't finish her sentence before because I interrupted her.
No, go ahead, Abe.
I was actually going to kind of piggyback on what you said earlier. I think something else that I know in regards to experting, please let me know. But the idea of having youth transition, right? Because in regards to apart from the brain development and all that, because you do know all that, right? The implementation of other things that youth gain, right, or learn, right, that helps them once they transition, right, back into the community, right? That's something that I think sometimes, at least comes to my mind, right? But that's I just want to kind of piggyback. That's something else I think that you're all well versed in, right? And obviously the challenges as well with that. But I think that's something that I've seen.
So could gang be included in youth violence? Or do you want it specifically
No, it's more of
mentioned?
a comment, I think, in regards to the youth transitioning, the subject matter experts, just kind of piggybacking a little bit. And I don't know if that's accurate. I guess is what I'm asking. Would that be accurate assessment?
I'm looking at Molly, who looks like she's thinking.
Oh, you're muted.
I think I'm really appreciative of the conversation or the comment, and I think this committee really has tried to look at the continuum across from everything from entering the system to leaving the system, right? So I do appreciate that there are subject matter experts and interest on this committee that have an interest in the transition work. So I really appreciate that, Abraham. And really what I was going to add comes back to the committee or to the YDC a little bit and on the goals and activities. So we do the develop the 3-year plan. And I know that we're in the middle of a biennium, and so maybe it feels like we don't really tackle that, but we have historically had conversations around the juvenile crime prevention county and tribal plans. And so that has been a goal and an activity. I know that it's been an activity that each committee member has really been active in. And my thought and my guess is that Jeff, as the chair, is going to really want that, and Anya is going to really want that in the future, the really active member participation.
So that seems to be connected to the administered juvenile crime prevention funding, including reviewing and approving county and tribal JCP plans.
So it's up in the notes from the PPP, but when it says goals and activities in the strategic plan, I just wasn't sure because I haven't looked at
added to the strategic plan. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. JCP. And surprise, surprise, we're about to start that process soon enough. Thank you so much. Those are all very valid additions. And eventually, Molly and Abe, Joy and I will ask you to help us finalize the purpose statement, so we will cut it right. Anything else that we missed?
Anya, Molly just put in the chat that she's going to send some language to us.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Molly. Any other comments? And this is a living document. We can revisit it at the next meeting and see if, we captured the comments correctly this time, and if there'll be something additional. So it's subject to change anytime something else comes up, or we got a new assignment. I'll just add to, for the 30-day detention programs, we have review and monitor. I will say review, approve, and monitor. Lindsay, I think what we don't have here, we don't have a statement specific to compliance monitoring work. Because the second one, meet and monitor juvenile delinquency prevention act and state advisory group requirements, that's much broader than what you do. And we do have RAD technical assistance, but I think we should also add the work that you do on compliance monitoring. Lindsay, you there?
I couldn't find my unmute button. I'm not real familiar with Zoom. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
so I would add a bullet there, and we will send you the draft once it's ready. So it's monitor. How did you phrase it?
How would I rephrase it?
Yeah, because that's your job. Monitor and ensure states compliance.
For the feds, I guess, like federally.
So monitor and ensure states compliance with the core requirements of the
Yes.
GSP.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
For the state of Oregon.
Because I think you were next on the agenda with that.
Yeah, I wasn't real sure what to update about, except that we.
Well, that's exactly what you tell us, that we completed that process. Anyway, anything else for the bullets? And again, you know, if you cannot think of anything now, or you will think something later on, we will have another chance to, well, several chances to take a look at it.
Anya, Jeff Justison. I just think either take out the bullet of the meeting schedule as determined by the committee, or take out the meeting schedule thing at the bottom. We just really probably only need that in one place would be my thing. I mean, we could say,
I see.
Down below, we could say current meeting schedule or something, but I just don't think we need it both places.
Awesome, thank you. I didn't even notice that. Melissa, are we meeting the expectations of the charter?
This is Melissa Gallardo with YDO. Yes, you are leading in the committee work on the charter so far. Congratulations.
Okay. And there's a paragraph here, the committee expectations, and it's pretty much states what we already. Is that a quote from the bylaws?
It is.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Molly, you have your hand raised.
I was just going to compliment that the committee typically has been a leader with being organized. So congratulations, Jeff. You're keeping up the good work.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. I've done very little so far.
Well, you're doing great. Okay, Mr. Chair, should we move on to the next item, or there's any other comments as of like right now to add to the charter?
I think we're good to move on. I think people have had the chance, and/or we'll send you something. So I'd say go ahead and move on to the next item.
Awesome, thank you. And next we have the OJJDP Federal Compliance Monitoring Audit Report and State Response Update. So Lindsay, I'll start, and then if you could please give the details that you feel people should know about. So we talked about the audit and the audit letter for quite a few months. So the due date to respond to the findings was Monday, June 22nd. And you probably will remember the findings. Well, the first one was, because we shared that information before, was to update the language in our compliance monitoring universe, and Lindsay has done it. The second two were more challenging. It was for Clackamas County court holding facility, so we had, because they were in danger of violating both sight and sound separation and jail removal, just the way their building was structured. So Lindsay worked closely with Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, and eventually they sent us the policy, which was due on Monday, and they didn't meet the timeline, so we did send it to the feds, and we're waiting for the results. So Lindsay, do you want to give it a little more specific details, if you don't mind?
Well, I feel like you pretty much covered it all. I mean, because Clackamas County Courthouse got a brand new building, because they used to have the juvenile court holding separately, but now everybody's in the same building. We had to redo their policy and figure out how they can bring the kids out after being adjudicated, because they were going through the adult jail lockup portion and they weren't able to do time phasing. So I just had that conversation back and forth, trying to figure out what that looked like, and help them do policy. And yeah, we submitted that Monday to OJJDP, all of our audit response letter. And
So in their policy, they found an alternative way to bring the kids.
yes, yeah, they said no more kids at all, even coming in. They're not going to come in anymore, even though that was permitted. They're just going to say no more until they can build a wall or something down there, if possible.
And they also put the blinds on the windows of the cells just to prevent sight and sound. But then if the kids are not coming in this way anyway.
Right, and we're helping. We helped, or we're trying to help pay for those covers.
We'll pay for the covers. Better be safe than, sorry. So anyway, but it's a huge win. So with Lindsay's perseverance, it was the way the finding was first mapped, it was not necessary. The county wasn't ready for that judgment. So it took some convincing to get them to cooperate.
Yeah.
So good job, Lindsay.
Thanks. Now fingers crossed for a response from OJJDP.
And good job, Captain Davy. That's the name of the captain who runs the court holding area, the court.
Yeah.
Any questions for Lindsay? Chief Copeland let us see his facility, and he is absolutely free of any findings. Good job, Chief. And Caitlin, we probably said it before, but they visited 2 of the OYA facilities. They went to Oak Creek and McLaren, and they really were impressed with the programming that the kids received there. And there were absolutely no findings for OYA as well.
Thank you. And you guys are welcome to come by anytime. Thank
you. We will come to visit, not to do an inspection.
That would be way less stressful.
No, you did great.
Okay, if there's no more questions for Lindsay or Anya, thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for all your work on that. I know having gone through some compliance stuff that it's good to get through. So yep, appreciate that. Next is probation reform. Molly and I will kind of cover that. Molly, do you want to start? Do you want me to start? How do you want to do this?
And why don't you kick it off and then I'll pick it up from there.
Okay. So just as a little bit of background, over the years, Wasco County specifically, a lot of the Kojak counties, but were involved in some detention reform through the NEEKC Foundation. And the Norcor counties, led by Molly, really look at things like all conditions of confinement and alternatives to detention. And we've really spent a lot of time working on that to the point where kind of have that down. So really the next step for Wasco County is looking at probation. We're calling it probation transformation, not necessarily probation reform, because reform in my mind kind of implies change or a need for a change, and we're just looking at refining what we've done. So it's really a refinement or a transformation, and looking at right now there's a lot of individual from, say, Molly's staff, individual input onto what the probation terms look like, and looking at more like a data supported buy-in from all of the players, the courts, the DA, the police, law enforcement, that sort of thing. So to that end, looking at partnering with the Casey Foundation again and having some technical assistance brought in to bring the players together and really look at what probation looks like now and what it could look like and what it should look like in the future, and something that everybody can kind of share ownership on. And so we're in the beginning stages where we're kind of refining, and I'm looking at it, Molly, I promise, the request to the Casey Foundation for some technical assistance. It'll probably look like maybe some virtual meetings to kind of get a TA advisor up to speed as to what's going on here and that sort of thing, and then bring somebody out. And there's experts all across the nation. Molly and I have quite a network through the Casey Foundation of people with different areas of expertise and that are phenomenal trainers and technical advisors. So really that's what's going on, but it's really at these beginning steps, going from theory to getting it down on paper, what we're trying to do. So that's what I just promised Molly I was looking at, was our request to the Casey Foundation. So I'll turn it over to Molly to kind of fill in some gaps, anything I missed or misstated.
No, Jeff did a great job. So Jeff really has been a partner since 2008. I think I potentially can share my screen. Nope, I can't. Am I able to have the opportunity to share my screen?
Yes, Molly, I just made you co-host. I think you can.
Thank you. And so I'm going to share just some slides that are really some work that we're doing here in Wasco County. And so for us, I also had the privilege to go back to Washington DC, to Baltimore with Anya and Maricel and a team of us. Lawrence joined us, and I'm missing one person. Was it Debbie Martin from Oregon?
Debbie Martin from Hawaii.
Yeah. And so we spent a very intense time back in Baltimore, with the Annie Casey Foundation, really focusing on what does probation reform look like through the lens of a SAG, which is the Juvenile Justice Committee, right? Within YDC being the subject matter experts for YDC. And so when we were back there, what we learned was that Oregon has a unique system. There were 5 states total that they looked at. And it really made sense for me in Wasco County that we were ready to make the jump. And so when Anya and Lawrence and we got home, just started having those beginning conversations. So probation transformation is something that Wasco County is taking a look at. And in doing so, these slides are really rough at this point, but the core really has to be kind of the juvenile justice arm of the county. And so Wasco County's youth services really has a focus on supporting youth, building accountability, and focusing on data, which were all of the things that we talked about back in Baltimore. And it's what Jeff and I have been trained for through the Annie Casey Foundation, through the Applied Leadership Network, and results counts. So then we in Wasco County had the capacity to build out 3 legs of a stool, which I think many people are aware of and maybe many people are not aware of. But we have Youth Think, which is our prevention work as part of the Department of Youth Services. We have the assessment center that's now been open for about 18 months, which is directly impacts our capacity to do probation transformation. And then we have juvenile justice, us, probation officers. The other is that we have 4 community partners that are really key in allowing us to do this. One is our youth empowerment shelter, so that we have the capacity for youth who don't necessarily need to be in detention, but cannot return home safely, or need out-of-home placement, unstable housing. We have Norcore juvenile detention, and there are moments in time and safety reasons and victim protection where young people need to be in a facility that's safe and secure, as well as there's a legal mandate to put out-of-state runaways. Center for Living and our Six Rivers Mediation are our 4 key partners. Data. This is our data. And so Jeff talked about the fact that we have reduced our reliance on detention and our detention alternatives. And so here we are back to 2015 when we had 445 days of young people spending time in detention. And you can see, of course, the pandemic impacted us. However, we continued to have alternatives and be able to maintain safety as we're able to remove youth from detention, secure detention. These are money pieces. We don't need to talk about that. Referrals. The other part, of course, is, okay, Molly, Wasco County has implemented alternatives to detention. Is the community safe? And so you can see here, there's a bump up since 2024 and 2025. 2025, the bump includes our MARC referrals. And so we knew there was going to be a natural bump because we're actually accessing way more youth that we would not have typically seen with non-criminal type referrals. So the youth necessarily haven't gone up as incrementally as the referrals because we have our MARC. So again, back from when we had 445 young people in detention, our community is still safe. This was the next piece, is talking about allegations filed in court. And so for probation transformation, we really look at diversion and how we use court for just the most egregious and most high-risk youth. And so again, since 2019, we have pretty much eliminated our violation filings in the court system. Our misdemeanors are down and our felonies are, 2020 had a really weird felony thing going on. So understand small numbers are volatile, but take 2020 out of that and it's pretty consistent, which is what I believe we should be doing, right? So the more serious charges are the young people who are going into court. So that is our data and our pathway moving forward as we're starting to look at probation transformation. And using the results count model, Jeff's correct. We're going to be bringing in some experts and working with a team from our community to implement the transformation, specifically led by our courts, our defense, our prosecutors, our DAs are a critical component and sitting at the table with us. Law enforcement is a critical player at our table with us. Families with lived experience, youth with lived experience, and I'm missing somebody, Jeff. Oh, Jeff, our governor, our policymakers. So our county commissioners are at the table as well. So that's really where we're headed with probation kind of transformation. And I think that's what Anya just kind of wanted to kind of have us highlight, is really taking what we learned back in Baltimore, bringing it back and really walking through what it could look like for system improvement in one of our locations. And I just feel grateful and lucky that, one, I've had a long time relationship with the Annie Casey Foundation through Applied Leadership Network and JDAI, as well as the opportunity to go with the YDC, YDO back to the training.
Any questions for Molly or Dee or Anya or anyone? I'm looking for raised hands. I'm looking for people to jump in. I think we can probably kind of keep this on an every meeting agenda if we're doing every other month. So we can kind of just update where we're going. And just so the committee kind of knows what the progress is.
And we will be, by all means, our kind of first meeting had a huge technological glitch in it. But Lawrence and Anya will always be invited moving forward without our technological glitch that we had. And Jeff will continue to help me figure out how to do technology in the Columbia room.
That's awesome. I know I wasn't able to attend, but Lawrence tries to get in, but couldn't.
It was all technology.
Molly, Jeff, may I ask you a question?
Of course.
Yes.
So since probation transformation, let's use your language, stay away from the reform, is the key component, it's actually centerpiece of our 3-year plan. And later on, we will talk about fiscal year 24 and 25 RFA. It should be focused around the probation transformation. Are you aware, are there any other counties or whatever level of jurisdictions who engaged with any KC with this work?
Yeah, so yes, Multnomah County has been doing probation transformation, and I just want to be really thoughtful and clear. Wasco County is not requesting any funds. Jeff and I have the opportunity through some technical assistance work that we're able to do. So I think we can be kind of a bit of a pilot without requiring or requesting dollars, just so everybody's kind of clear. But Multnomah County, I don't know where they're currently at with their work with the Annie Casey Foundation, but historically they have been a site that has worked with it. I don't know the answer to that, but those are the only two that I know.
Thank you, Molly. And now I have a question for Nella. Nella, is that okay?
Sure.
So could you remind folks about the work that Judicial Department has been doing around probation? Well, let's call it transformation.
Sure. Yeah, I like that term. That's fantastic. Yeah, our JDP Advisory Committee identified probation transformation as an area that model court teams, so local courts and their community partners could work on. And so we have worked on some materials for those model court teams. We put together a probation design team. We ultimately have kind of put that on pause because when we came together as a group, it was hard to find consensus around what that would look like because it really is that 36 counties, 36 different ways. And so we've brought that back to the advisory committee and just kind of continued conversations about that. But I will say another group within OJD that creates forms revamped the model probation conditions form in the last year and a half or so. We had an old one that was super outdated, it had tons of conditions on it, and so we tried to streamline that process a little bit. That work is a little less connected to JDIP since it's a group of judges that creates those model forms for juvenile. But that is available on our website, and we also always encourage judges and community partners to come together whenever there's a forms change and make sure it works for their county. So it's really just a model. At our upcoming summit in November, we plan to have some folks from NCJ, FCJ to work through some of the materials that they have available about probation transformation, including the guide for judges and then also the guide for practitioners. And so I'd be interested to hear from folks in this group about what they'd like to see from that because it just seems like really good timing with everyone here with your efforts on probation transformation. So that's a bit of an update. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm only off camera because I was just eating my lunch.
Bon appetit. So, Nella, are there any, to your knowledge, are there any judges that have been using the forms, the revised form?
Yes, I believe so. I think that the form, again, it's just a model, and so some folks have maybe used that form to look at their community's conditions, but it was a form that was folks were looking for a revised one. But I can't tell you exactly the number of counties that are using that one. I imagine most counties use a local form and then look to our model forms to see if, it's worth updating theirs. But that's a great question, Anya. It's only been out, it's been posted again in the last year, and we've gotten lots of questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Noah.
So I have a question, Noah. One of the pieces that we'll be doing is we're going to be doing some data on each of the conditions. I'm curious if there are any is there any research on your conditions that you guys have been working on?
Research on conditions?
So violations of probation, understanding what violations of probation look like.
Are you asking about OJD data, or are you just asking about like the wide research and national best practice?
I'm just asking, is that something that's been built into your model court forms? The capacity to research those at all?
I think I'm not understanding your question, Molly. I'm sorry.
So OJD, so are you able to use your data system if there's a violation of probation? Are you able to track what that is in your data system?
No, we have not had data up until this point, unless you narrow down to the case and look specifically at the orders. We do not have the capacity within Odyssey to track exactly which things are being violated. That's a big goal, a very big goal of mine. But we don't, it's very inconsistent county to county, whether the probation conditions themselves are logged into the system. Some counties do that, some don't. And it's not a requirement within our business processes. But Molly, like, you're totally ahead of the game. That's exactly what we'd wish to do, to be able to get a better understanding of which conditions are being ordered regularly, and then exactly your question, which conditions are being violated. But that is a pretty heavy lift in terms of business practices across the state and across the courts. But definitely a lot of inconsistency there, but a goal to be able to track that. Absolutely. And then I would ask the same question to you, Molly. In terms of JJIS, what do you know that's available in terms of both what's ordered and then what is violated?
So I did for a long time. I was able to document, well, I can document, but who goes to detention on whether it's for a new crime or a new allegation or a technical violation. And so we track that and we looked at it every quarter. My dilemma has been that when the numbers get down to 0, 2, and 4, I can tell you what those are. There were no technical violations going into detention, but I can't yet dig into, I will be able to, I think, as we narrow down what our probation conditions are, we'll be able to put those in JJIS and be able to track those. That's one of my goals, is to be able to track everything, because what we learned from the Annie Casey Foundation is if it matters, you measure. And so results counts. And so that's where getting down to that. But I was able to do just probation violation technical versus probation violation new offense for a long period of time. And that's how we really narrowed down only holding youth on new violations or new allegations.
Molly, is there capacity
really
in the
interesting.
judges to keep track of which probation was violated? Basically, it's just a matter, can it be entered there and it's just people don't enter? Or
yes, it can be. If you have lots and lots, it can be unyielding, unwielding. Anyway, but it has, yes, JJS has the capacity.
Awesome, thank you.
That would be just really amazing statewide information. I just wish we could pull it, and I know that we can't. But it would be all of these conversations about probation transformation, and I think that there's a lot of like anecdotal stories about, hey, in this county, there's violations for this, and it's leading to this, but we really don't have. I feel like I haven't been able to see or seek out like the clear data on that besides those anecdotal stories where we can identify, right, transformation is potentially needed in places. But it really stinks when you don't have just like that clear, reliable data to back it up. So just a comment, nothing, nothing substantive to add.
Great. Any other questions? That's really good discussion, really good points you guys bring up. Yeah, very interesting. When your numbers are low, you can kind of go and pull those things out. But when we're wanting to look across the state, it's a little harder. So any other questions on the probation reform? Double check for hands, no hands. So let's move on to the RFA development and program areas from fiscal year 2024. Lawrence and Anya, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Lawrence White here. I can give a brief update on where we are with 2024 ideas. But before I do that, I'd like to kind of backtrack and talk about the existing grants that we do have out, which are fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We had 6 grantees awarded off of those grants, and of those 6, 3 of them were doing such a fabulous job. Actually, 4 of them were doing such a fabulous job that we extended the funding for 3 of them monetarily, and we also extended time for the mark in Wasco County, which they're doing phenomenal work also. So currently we have those 4 grantees out with the funding for fiscal year 2023. 2024 funding has a different programmatic requirement. We're leaning into the probation more with those funding opportunities. So we are looking at initiating a new RFA. It's important to kind of remember the funding that we have out currently went through an RFA. And traditionally, we've not done that. So that was a really good learning experience for us to kind of determine how specific we need to be in ensuring that we get the proper pool of candidates to award these grants to do the work that we actually need them to do, required to do in a more specific containment, so to speak. So we learned a lot from the RFA that we did 2 years ago. We're using that experience now to develop an RFA for the fiscal year 2024 funding with a heavy emphasis on probation. So that way we can kind of minimize the pool to the work that we actually need done, much more specific, much more restrictive, and much more contained, again, to funding areas and organizations and groups that are actually doing the work that's required by the federal government under these Title II funding opportunities. So that's kind of where we are with that. There's so much work that has to be done. Like I said, traditionally we didn't go with RFAs. We learned so much from this one, so we have to apply the things that we've learned with the things that we've done in the past. That first time, maybe not the first time, but hadn't done it in a long time. So we should anticipate having, hopefully, fiscal year 2024 funding in play by January of 27. Our idea, and this is just an idea, it's a concept at this point, our idea is to provide 1-year funding with the option of extending those programs with possible FY 2025 funding as well. So that's kind of where we are with that. We'll just definitely keep you abreast as to the development of the RFA, what specific language we're looking at. We'll lean on your intelligence as well as your expertise to kind of shore up what that RFA looks like and the processes that involved with that. And again, that's kind of where we are with the fiscal year 2024 funding. Anya, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. You outlined it really well. So and it's in the agendas, there are 3 program areas that have been identified and approved by the federal government. So there is one is graduate and appropriate sanctions. Second one is community-based services and programs, and the third one is delinquency prevention. There are ways to connect each one of the 3 to different stages and aspects of probation transformation. So so what Lawrence and I were thinking about yesterday is how to narrow the pool. What we were referring to in the federal awards do not have to go through a competitive process unless they exceed $250,000 each, but we don't have that much money. So what the amounts we're talking about is really $150,000 for each of the program areas. But there are federal requirements that have to be followed other than just financial ones. There are certain things that will go into the grant agreements, but there are also expectations. So for instance, we have the flexibility to set those expectations on top of the federal basic requirements. So one, we could put some restrictions on who is eligible to apply. So basically, we're not changing the eligibility, but the eligibility is any unit of any level of government. So it could be a city, it could be a county, it could be even a state agency, which hasn't really happened before, but they still could. It could be any nonprofit community-based organizations. It could be a school, it could be a school district, it could be a faith-based organization. So it could be a juvenile department, it could be any department within county. So this is the pool, but what we have, we cannot limit that because that's the federal law. But what we could limit is what are the requirements for the applicants to meet. So for instance, listening to Molly and Jeff and being sort of party to discussions that were held at JDP about probation transformation, it just seems that you have to have local partners in place. So this is actually Molly and Nella, we might need your help. Actually, we will need your help with is who are those partners need to be. So for instance, it has to connect to the juvenile department regardless. It has to connect to the courts because you cannot make any changes in probation unless these folks are in place. So who else needs to be there? So we could set some requirements for what applicants has to show, right? It has to be a clear outcome because that's very federal requirement. You have to show. So for instance, if we're using graduate and appropriate sanctions, So that's closer to what the juvenile department does with the court. Like, is probation at all appropriate for that kid? Or is there any other alternative that they could use or something else? So it could be any sanctions at whoever disposal. Community-based services and programs, they could serve as a diversion type of implementation. And I'm just thinking it out loud because we haven't finalized it. And it could be OIA probation too, Caitlin. So it doesn't need to be like limited. And delinquency prevention is the broadest one, but it doesn't specify that it cannot be used for kids who have never committed a crime before. It could be used for kids who could commit another crime and just basically recidivate. So the biggest challenge is to write it right in such a way. So this is not to say that if we want the outcomes that we expect to achieve, we need to narrow down the pool. And we don't necessarily want to go through a full scaled, what do they call it? When you choose grants, like the scoring, the reviewers, competitive. So it could be it will still have to be a competitive thing depending on how much applications we'll receive. But we would like to limit the reviewer pool to you, to the Juvenile Justice Committee members, because this is when we need your expertise to decide which proposal will help us meet the goals, other than who wrote the best application. Because that doesn't make sense.
And to add to that, Anya, Anya and I spoke yesterday about applicants submitting a letter of interest before the application, so that way we can kind of measure the type of success that they are possibly saying that they could have, and we could see what exactly things they have in place that kind of match up with the requirements that we're asking for. So that would minimize some of the pool as well.
Molly, go ahead.
So I think if we really look back at what our training was that we went back to Baltimore, is I think we should take out the probation toolkit that was supported through OJJDP a couple of years ago, and the partnership with the Annie Casey Foundation. And I know that I don't think we want to brand it as that, because it really wasn't done by the Annie Casey Foundation. They were the technical assistance providers for it. But it really is around asking how to do kind of the key things, which is expand the use of diversion. And so community-based organization can help do that. Minimize or measure frequency of out-of-home placements. And then I think if we were to ask that as their planning committee or their collective, their leadership collective, is that families and youth impacted by the system need to be involved. And again, I want to be really clear, Wasco County is not going to be applying or asking for any of these funds. But those are the things that we were taught on how to do probation transformation, is kind of those key pieces. And then the final would be is those key people, not just families who are impacted, but also law enforcement, judges, and the attorneys involved.
Awesome. So I think unless you have different ideas for Lawrence and me, our next steps will be, we need to meet with procurement for consultation and see what the process might look like. And there are certain requirements that the state has that we cannot not follow. Once we know what these are, we will start working on the requirements for each of the program area, and that's when we will need your help. We will loop it back to you for review and additional thoughts. Does it make sense? So by August, we should at least have a draft of the requirements and expectations for each of the proposals. I don't know if we will be ready for a letter of interest, but at least we can work on that at the same time and share with you what we've accomplished so far at the August meeting.
Any questions, comments, thoughts? Is that enough direction there, Anya?
I think so. Just as long as we have your approval that you agree to, as subject matter experts, to review our draft expectations for each of the program area proposals, and most important, to be the reviewers for the applications once they come in. Is the silence? Yes.
Nobody's screaming no on you, so I'm going to take that as a yes. I'll go that direction.
I am happy to take it as a yes too. So thank you so much.
All right. Next on the agenda is the fiscal year 25 award status.
I will. It's gonna be brief. So, just in case you're curious, our 24 award amount was $681,658. Our 25 went down a little bit, but not significantly. It's now $600,067 and 119 cents, which is about $12,000 difference. So, which means that we don't need to change the amounts for each of the program area. So it's still going to be the same one because the difference will take up from somewhere else. But we don't have the award yet. So we've submitted all of our documentation. There we have one missing piece that we've been working on fixing. So Melissa has been kindly revising our roster that needs to be resubmitted. So basically what we didn't have one person on the council representing a certain category. And the federal law is very clear what the expectations of a state advisory group are. And if we have one category missing, we cannot be eligible to receive the funding. But Melissa, do you mind speaking to this a little bit?
Sure, Anya, thank you. This is Melissa Gallardo with YDD. I'm actually wrestling with sorry, my camera will not turn on. There we go. I'm actually wrestling with the PDF right now, doing some PDF editing because the form they provided does not allow for the dates that we want to put in there. But it is ready to go and we're hoping it should qualify. Was there anything specifically you wanted me to say about it, Anya?
Oh, just that we're working on this. I appreciate your help. And as you know, we had, as Brian shared, we have 3 new council members just recently appointed, and we have one more person who submitted her application, and it's pending the governor's appointment. So we will resubmit the roster as it stands now and see what happens. And if they deny it, then we'll still have, we can reapply again as soon as that person is appointed.
Exactly.
Right.
Do you want me to share the qualification? That it's kind of interesting when we're recruiting members and what we need to look for.
Yeah.
The question is, are at least 3 members currently or have they been under the jurisdiction of the juvenile justice system? If not feasible and in appropriate circumstances, are members the parent or guardian of someone who has been or is currently under the jurisdiction of the juvenile justice system? And there's a note that we don't have to identify which members qualify for this. We just have to give a number. So that's what we're working on, meeting that qualification.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. So once the roster is resubmitted and we hear back from the OJJDP, they'll say, okay, you met the requirements or you didn't. But the amount will not change, so we're not out of compliance in any shape or form. Just we didn't meet one of the 33 requirements of eligibility. But once this money comes in, that will be another thing to decide. Do we want to offer 6 awards or hold on to 25 funds for second year funding? So that's also something to consider. But the program areas are the same, so they could potentially be used as second year funds or put out for in RFA at the same time as 24. Which will still not change RFA that much. Either way we go, it will still have a notion that it could be extended for time and money depending on availability of funds and grantee performance, because we'll still have 26 money coming in, which is the last year of the 3-year plan. So it will still have the same purpose and the same programmatic areas. That's all I have. Lawrence, do you have anything to add?
No, and when Anya refers to 6 grants as opposed to a lesser amount, and add the additional year to grants to continue the program for 2 years. It's similar to what we did with the FY 21-22 grants, and then we used the 23 grants to extend financially some of the grants that did really well, some of the grantees that did really well. So what she's saying is, we could use 24 grants solely and use 25 to kind of continue the program 2 years, or we can use both fiscal year funding 24-25 together and just put it all out once at the same time, and then use 26 funding to extend any grants that do exceptionally well. So yeah, that's all I have. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we look forward to working with you on this as we move forward.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lawrence and Anya. Good information, and we'll all get caught up, and I'm sure you'll be flooded with questions after the meeting. That's all specifically listed on the agenda. Lawrence, or Anya, excuse me, did you have anything else that we needed to add to the agenda?
No, I just always list other business just in case something comes up.
Yep. I didn't, doesn't look like there's anything specific. So does anyone have any questions or comments on anything they're doing? We've got about almost 40 minutes left. If anybody has some updates for the good of the order, go ahead and raise your hand. Kind of bounce through there. Not seeing anybody jumping at that. So that said, it looks like everyone wants a few minutes of their time back, scheduled till 1:30. But if there's nothing else, it looks like I was actually out yesterday when the emails came in. Joy and Anya about, we had some cancellations, but that's just canceling every other month. So we would be scheduled in August again. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. We used to meet monthly because while we were working on JCP plans and on detention guidelines, such as we needed to meet more frequently, but right now it's a little less intense. So we felt like meeting every other month should suffice the needs of the committee, unless of course somebody wants to meet monthly.
I'd ask for hands on that, but I think we'd see crickets and not hands for right now. But honestly, if someone needs to meet more often, be sure to
of course
bring that up. So the next Juvenile Justice Committee meeting will be Wednesday, the 26th of August at 11:30. We do have a quarterly, the next YDC quarterly meeting is Thursday, September 10th. So just make sure those are on your calendar. And not seeing any other hands, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for being here today. We will see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.